Welcome to our eBay training tonight, everybody. So we are going to talk about volume listing, okay? And when I say listing and volume, what I'm talking about is listing a whole ton of products, not just a couple. See, I guess the biggest uh, misnomer when you're doing an eBay business is that it's all about a ton of research and just a few products. And that's just not an accurate way to go about doing retail drop shipping. If your strategy is to carry your own inventory, I would argue that yes, it's about a lot of research and a few products, but I can tell you the vast majority of our clients are into the drop shipping business, and therefore the opposite is true. It's about very little research and mass quantities, mass volume of listings. And the reason I've been thinking about this listing and volume idea is, I had somebody that I've worked with now for, I don't know, a few months, maybe 2 months is all, who recently decided that this just wasn't working for them. Now, ordinarily, I don't like to highlight stories where we have clients that struggle, but in all honesty, we have a few clients that aren't nearly as successful as they could be. In other words, we're not 100% perfect in turning, people who come into this program into these amazing success stories. I think we do a great job, and I think we get a pretty good percentage of people that do real well. But I would be dishonest if I said that 100% of our clients fell into that category. I think it's a high percentage, but not everybody, that's for sure. Well, I had a client recently that I feel like has really struggled, and I kind of want to give you a little background on their story and kind of explain why they ended up quitting and deciding this wasn't for them, so that you don't fall into that same trap, because this is a common trap to fall into. Okay, so here's basically what happened. They had been listing. See, over the first, I don't know, 2-3 weeks, maybe even a month. And I feel like a lot of you guys fall into this category. We teach you the theory behind the strategy of doing drop shipping and retail drop shipping specifically, which is why we're sitting here on Walmart right now. We explain why and how it works, maybe what kinds of products to start with, and then we turn you loose and we let you get started. And I can tell you 75% of my clients or more will list somewhere in the neighborhood of, I don't know, somewhere between 10 and 50 products. Okay. And over that first month that they list those products, maybe only 1 or 2 items sell. In this particular case, this client had listed somewhere in the neighborhood of like 40 or 45, and nothing sold. Okay. Who can relate to that here? Those of you who are live with me, who can relate to putting up a bunch of products right when they started and then nothing really sold? A whole bunch of you, right? That's because it's common. So I want to make this point very, very clear tonight. If you are working at the retail dropshipping strategy and you put up a bunch of stuff in your first month, sometimes it takes you the first couple of months because maybe you're a little slow with your listings, and you don't sell anything, then welcome to the club, because that's probably every single one of us who've ever done retail drop shipping. Now, not that it's common not to sell anything. I mean, you may sell 1 or 2 items, but the point is you don't usually sell a very high percentage right off the bat. That's just the way it works. And there's a few reasons for that, right? In fact, let me take some notes. Let's just talk about why that would be that you would list 50 items or less and not see sales. Pull up a notepad here. I guess the first thing to realize is that is common, and I try to make that point clear in my trainings, and I don't think I do it well enough. So I'm really going to drive that home point tonight. That is a common occurrence you are not on an island if you don't close sales on your first few listings. Okay, so don't feel like you are, and certainly don't assume that the program or retail drop shipping doesn't work because that happened to you, because that's almost certainly not the case. It does work, but you can't really jump into any conclusions until you give it a little bit of time. Okay, an example, right? And this is the example I use a lot. Um, it is very common, I think, if you've ever been in a position, and this is somewhat appropriate because we're still kind of at the first part of the year here, but I think it is very common if you've ever gone to the gym without having been to the gym for a while, or maybe you have, but you just haven't been seeing results. So you're going to the gym again and trying to get back into shape. And over the first couple of weeks that you attend and work hard and ache and hurt because of how hard you've been working, you go and you look in the mirror and you can't even see a change at all. In fact, you go and you hop on the scale, and sure enough, rather than losing any weight, you found that you gained a couple of pounds. And immediately in your mind, and I know this is true of people, it certainly has been true of me in the past, immediately you say, well, what was the point, right? I just killed myself for the last few weeks, maybe even the last month, and I literally see no results, even maybe worse results if I'm measuring my success by weight gain, or weight loss, which you probably shouldn't anyway. I guess the point is, most things in life, and I think this is true whether we're talking about relationships or or working out or a business, most things in life, the work you put into it, you don't necessarily get paid immediate dividends, right? And don't misconstrue, I'm not saying you can't make money very quickly with retail dropshipping, because you can, but I think often you don't see those results within the first few weeks. And sometimes you don't see acceptable results within the first month. But after that, if you stick with it, you do. And so I guess long story short, for this client that I'm telling you guys about, they they listed these 45 products or so, and it was a little bit of a struggle because it took them some time to learn how to do it. Once they did, they got them listed. They didn't sell anything, and so they then decided, you know what, this probably doesn't work. I think this was a waste, and they quit, which is so common. I feel like the example of the gym is so perfect for this, because how many people go to the gym for a little while, first part of the year, don't see results, maybe just get tired of it and then quit going. And then they're paying for a gym membership the entire rest of the year, right? This type of thing happens. I feel like the parallel is amazingly perfect to what we're talking about here, because this happens to a few of you, not a lot, but a few of you. And I would say the biggest culprit of that is the volume issue. So I'm just going to put right here volume. Okay, reasons why. I guess we should title this "Reasons Why You Are Not Closing Sales Quickly Using RDS," which we're going to call retail drop shipping. Number one is volume. You do not have enough listings. Okay. You don't have a big enough sample size. You just don't. And you know what? Walk into any store, any retail store, retail shop, any successful online business. Most of them have hundreds, if not thousands, of items in their store, right? Can you imagine how much smaller Walmart would be, right? They're a multi-billion-dollar company, or Amazon for that matter, another multi-billion-dollar company. Can you imagine how small they would be if they only had a small handful of items, right? It wouldn't be nearly the company as they are. Now, I'm not making the point that we're trying to become Amazon or Walmart. I'm just saying that part of their success is in the fact that they have hundreds of thousands of products for sale. And I'm going to argue that for most of you guys who are starting retail drop shipping, if you don't have at least hundreds of products, you are going to struggle. So volume, at least hundreds, okay? And my best clients usually push up to 600, 700, 800, some of you over 1,000 active listings in your store on a regular basis. So volume, not enough listings. We need at least hundreds, if not up to 1,000. Whoops, got to spell that right. Okay. Right. So you guys agree with that? Does that make sense? I know some of you guys here that are with me tonight are making sales and doing okay, doing retail drop shipping. Don't you think that's true? Okay, so what else then? What other reasons are there that you may not be closing sales quite as quickly on retail drop shipping? Oh, that's a good point, Corinne. All right, before we move off of point 1 here, Corinne just brought up the fact that you only get 50 free listings, right? Meaning on your 51st listing during the month, you're going to get charged 30 cents. Well, so here's my solution for you. You have a couple of options. Either if you're that tight and money's going to be an issue, stop at 50 and let it ride for a month, which actually works into my next point. I'm just going to put this down right now before I forget. But give your listings time. We're going to say 6 weeks minimum. So for example, you would then list your 50, Corinne, and then you would let the 50 sit. And you'd let them sit for a month or up to 6 weeks. Take a good, honest look at the titles, the kind of items you're putting up, pricing, and if they still don't sell, pull them down and list another 50 the next month. Then you're not paying any insertion fees. Now that's if you cannot withstand some insertion fees. I would argue that if you'll just push through that, register an eBay store, which is, $25, $30 a month, you'll get 250 free listings, and then you should easily be able to make that up in your sales because you've listed in pretty mass quantity. So that's how I would overcome that, because that's definitely a pretty common concern, because you guys don't want to get nickeled and dimed to death by eBay. But back to point number 2, give your listings some time. So to this example of this client of mine that I'm sharing with you, they only had about 45 listings up for maybe a month. They didn't even go up to 6 weeks, maybe a month that they had that amount up and they didn't sell. Well, I've told this story before. I'm just going to mention it one more time. I like the story of the old ugly leather couch that my client sold, and I apologize if you've heard this before. You can plug your ears if you want, but I'm going to tell it again because I think it illustrates a pretty good point. There was it was a retail drop shipping item. It was a leather couch that was, in my opinion, pretty hideous and very expensive and just really unique. And my client listed it, and it didn't sell right off the bat. In fact, it was weeks and weeks and weeks, and it didn't sell. 3 or 4 weeks into it, we looked at it and we're like, well, should we keep it up? It's probably not going to sell. It just, it's ugly, it's expensive, probably not a good item. Well, we ended up leaving it up, and later it did sell. It sold on like week 6 or 7, and it ended up actually being a pretty good profit to the client because it was an expensive couch. So anyway, we said, okay, well, let's relist it, right? Because any of your sales, you guys need to relist. So we relisted it, and it sold again about a month and a half later. Long story short, this item is a staple in this client's store. Although it doesn't sell all that often, it sells anywhere from 10 to 12 times a year. And they're making a pretty good profit on it. I can't even remember, $150, maybe $200 a pop on it. So while that's not the best item in the world, that makes them a couple of $1,000s a year. And they would never have realized that if they would have just closed up shop too early on that product or on their store as a whole, right? They had some patience with their listings. So seriously, take that into consideration. Give your listings some time to sell. 6 weeks or more. Just be patient with them, and if they don't sell after that, filter them out and choose different listings. Okay? And that's the process. It's this period of refining, right? It's like you're in the river panning for gold, and you pan once and don't find anything. You say, well, guess I'm in the wrong river, and you go find somewhere else. When in fact you just needed to sit there for a few hours and do it, and you would have stumbled onto some. If you close up shop too early, it's never going to work out. So anyway, I think that's a pretty important point. Here's another one. No credibility on eBay. Low feedback. Okay, it does impact your sales, and I tell a lot of you guys who are just opening up new accounts on eBay that have very little feedback or credibility. I usually say it's not that big of a deal. You can still close sales with no feedback, and you can. I've had clients with no problem. They probably missed out on a few sales, but they built an eBay account doing nothing but selling from the ground up, zero feedback, and are now doing fine. But it is very difficult to sell a brand new piece of furniture for $800 if you literally have a brand new eBay account, set up that week, and you have no feedback. That will impact people. So how do you remedy that? Well, buy some baseball cards, buy some trading cards, buy some small cheap items out of China, and sell a few things. And you don't even need to make money on them. Just break even on them so you can build up your feedback score, and therefore you'll build up that credibility, and you'll be able to close sales a little bit better. That does have an impact on your sales for sure. But of all these reasons so far, I'm telling you, I put number one as volume because that's the biggest culprit. Okay, I hear it every single week from my clients saying, Trevor, it doesn't work. And I say, well, yeah, it does. Why are you saying it doesn't work when you only have 25 items on and those items have only been listed for 3 weeks? That's not the strategy. The strategy is volume and then filtering listings on and off at around the 6-week mark. Anything that sells, you keep it in the store. Anything that doesn't sell at 6 weeks or so, consider pulling it and replacing it with something else. That's you dumping out some of the material you were panning for gold. You're dumping out some of the worthless material you're getting and just trying to keep those little specks of gold, right? Over time, you're going to look over in your bucket and you're going to have a ton of gold, but you have to do a lot of panning to make that happen. Okay? Hopefully I'm not belaboring that analogy too much, but I think it's a good one. Number 4, not enough variety. Okay, you're listing everything in home decor from one supplier, and you're not closing sales, and you're saying it doesn't work. I've seen that happen before. Don't list everything in one niche from one supplier. Okay, I don't mind if you pick a niche on eBay, but use a bunch of different suppliers to do it and test out different types of products at different price points. We teach you to use Walmart to learn it, but that shouldn't be your only supplier. Use that to start, use that to learn the strategy, but then list a variety. You never know what kind of little micro niche you can find if you'll but try and search out different niches. I found some of my very best stuff by simply stumbling onto it. And you know what? You will too. And that's why I feel much better about having you just listen mass volume with little research, because your very best research comes from what you learn from your listings. If you feel like you're applying all these things, and we could go into more tonight, but I just wanted to highlight probably the main reasons here. If you're struggling and you're still not closing sales, consider on number 4 here, and that's usually where you're struggling. Maybe you're listing in high volume, but you're still not closing sales. Maybe you're giving things time, but you're still not closing sales. Usually these two, number 3 and 4, are the culprits then. Either your feedback's too low and you need to build it, or number 4, you don't have enough variety. You're stuck in a rut. You need to go out and try different suppliers. And by variety, I mean, and I'm going to put A and B here, try new retailers, maybe lesser known companies. And then B, use wholesale drop shippers. Go out and find some wholesale companies where you're priced a little bit better. I will admit to the fact that retail drop shipping has a weakness in that you're priced high on everything. And we compensate for you being priced high on everything by listing just a ton of stuff. And I feel like that can compensate for that and still make you successful. But it'd sure be nice if you had some better pricing. And so that can be something there. So if you feel like you're doing 1 and 2 and you're not seeing success, focus on 3 and 4. And a lot of times focus on 4. You got to go out there and try different things, and I can guarantee you will stumble onto it. But don't end up like the occasional non-successful client we have in the program. Don't jump to any conclusions that this doesn't work, or that it's a waste of your time, or you could make more money doing something else. Maybe you could, but over time, I promise you, your hourly rate on your eBay store is going to be every bit as good or better than the best job you can find around town. I mean, I can guarantee it. There are going to be products where you're going to be making hundreds of dollars an hour on that one product because it keeps selling and you keep fulfilling it, and it takes you almost no time to do it. But you have to discover those little gold nuggets. And if you're not willing to go through this process, you'll struggle to do it. So I just want to highlight number one more than anything, that is the biggest culprit for my clients being a little frustrated and struggling just a little more than they should at the start. And I just think, you know what, be honest with yourself. There's no get rich quick strategy out there that's even legit, right? Get lucky and win the lottery maybe, right? Scam artists maybe think they've got to get rich quick, but of course you're not going to be a scammer, right? If you want to build a legitimate business, it does take a little bit of time up front, but I know you can make money quickly at this if you'll apply this the right way. I've seen it happen for me. I've seen it happen for a lot of my clients, but you got to stick with it and you got to do it the right way. Okay? Let me look at a couple of your comments here as we've been talking, and feel free to add more. Charles, you say, I'm new. How do you get your feedback up selling baseball cards? Really easily, Charles. You go out to a local retailer or even buy them online. You can buy cheap packs of cards online, purchase them, and then list the cards individually for sale and run them as an auction starting at a penny or so. You could run them as an auction starting at a penny and free shipping if you want, because shipping a card won't cost you very much at all. Some of my clients will start an auction at a penny and then do like $2 shipping just to make sure they cover their shipping costs. But you can sell a bunch of these, and that'll build up your feedback in a hurry. And most of the time, I mean, even a no-name card, somebody's willing to bid on it, and you'll be surprised. You may pull some decent cards that you make some money on, but it's not a money-making strategy. In fact, maybe you break even or even lose a little bit on it, but you're exchanging that experience to build your feedback. We might do a more detailed training on that later, but that's certainly a helpful one. Yeah, Henry, that's not a bad idea. He says, what do you think about listing items that you see the big eBay sellers listing? If what they list sells, should it not work for us? So I agree and disagree with that, Henry. Some of the bigger eBay sellers, a lot of them have their own inventory and are carrying their inventory, so they're buying in bulk. Therefore, their per unit price on most of their products are going to be cheaper than yours. And so it's hard. I mean, although you might find that a particular product is selling like crazy, it's selling at a certain price point like crazy. And if you mark it up too high, you may price yourself out of the market. But where I do agree with that is you can go out and find other people who are doing the retail drop shipping strategy. You can find those people on eBay, and we'll do a training another time to show you how to do that. And then you can see what they have that's selling, and you can replicate it. So that could be something we do in the future for sure. Patty says, what if you sell and they don't leave you feedback? Should you ask for it? Yeah, you should, especially if you're really concerned about it at the beginning. I find if you just do a good job, you'll get half of people to leave you feedback, maybe 40 to 50%. And then if you'll send a follow-up email 3 or 4 weeks later, just saying, hey, I hope you liked your item. Did you have any concerns? Because if not, would you mind leaving us a comment, a positive comment? And then you'll get another maybe 20% of those people to actually do it. So the good news is, as you close sales, though, Patty, even if they're not leaving you feedback on your account, it's still helping your eBay account as a whole, and it's still, still a worthwhile thing for sure. A good question. Okay, well, I've rambled on long enough at you guys. I think this is a good reminder to a lot of you, and then to you that are newer, it's just a good caution, a good word of caution to you, just to not get too discouraged. Don't think you're on an island, and certainly don't dismiss the strategy until you've really given it a fair shake. Because I want you guys to all be success stories, but I can promise you, you won't be unless you give it a fair shake. And I'm not saying either this is the only strategy, right? This is just one of many, but we don't teach you this one for fun. We teach you this one at the very start of the program because we feel like it really works. And it has for a lot of our clients, and it certainly can for you. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. Guys, thanks for sticking around and being here for this training tonight. I hope it was helpful, and we will see you all next week at the same time. Plan on it. We'll do some more eBay training then. Thanks again, everybody.